Hey guys. So one of the things that we want to do here is introduce the concept of kingdom agriculture. When we were trying to get started and we really wanted to do things right, and so we were looking up all of the different things that people say to do and not to do, and you get a lot of advice that's conventional, obviously, and then you get a lot of advice that's more natural minded, which is kind of where we were leaning, but it also tends to come with spiritual baggage most of the time. And then we also found a lot of people that were Christians and doing agriculture, but didn't quite share that connection of their faith and how they play out in their agriculture. At least not publicly. Not just throwing that information out there. So a lot of this we kind of had to figure out just with us and God. And so anyway, I wanted to come and kind of share some of the things that we had to learn. This is not going to be so much on like technique or how we do things, although we'll definitely be using some of those for examples. Mainly what we're going to be doing is talking about principles that can be found in the Bible applied to agriculture. And obviously you can apply these to any area in life, and I hope you are applying them to every area of life, because it is just beautiful when you do. Anyway, so grab a cup of coffee, sit down, and let's talk kingdom agriculture. Okay, so before we get started, I want to get kind of some ground rules set, if you will. First of all, I want to say that these principles may be played out differently for other people, but these are principles from the Bible. And the principles themselves never change, although the way that God chooses to use them may change. And on that note, we may do things a certain way in response to these principles and our convictions, but God may lead you in a different way, free range versus tractored, or till versus no-till, or whatever it may be. The point that I'm trying to make is I don't want anyone to miss out on what God has for them because they're striving after a title, or they're striving after someone else's story of how these things have played out. As you begin to look at agriculture and all of these different methods, you will see that some of them obviously line up better with these principles than others, and some of them just flat out will or will not make the cut. But in all of that, I really hope that you really get the freedom to be able to learn and listen to God and as He leads you. So on that note, we will really be we'll be sharing what we have done, but by no means do we want to push our own personal convictions on anyone. This is a beautiful area where God has given us freedom, and we just want to steward it as best we can, and we're assuming you probably do as well if you're interested in this video. One last thing before we get started. I don't want to imply that to be a Christian doing agriculture, you absolutely have to be following all of these principles within agriculture. The only prerequisite for being Christian is putting faith in Jesus. And so I also don't want to imply that to be a good Christian, whatever that means, that you have to be following all of these things as well. I believe it's biblical that when we take God's word and we're obedient to it and we honor Him in any area, that we will see His goodness and glory shine through. And you think that if you're not applying these in any area, that you could be missing out big time, because God is awesome and the way He's designed things are beautiful, so beautiful. But by no means am I calling into question, anyone's salvation. Definitely not. This is just another way to glorify God, and why not do it to its fullest? Okay, now that is out of the way, I'd like to cover our first two principles. So principle number 1 has to do with God's favor. And there can be a lot of controversy about this type of subject. Typically, God's favor is associated with a prosperity gospel type of mindset, where, oh, once you put your faith in Jesus, you have favor and you're never going to stub your toe or get sick or cry ever again. It's just not that way. Or they think, oh, God's favor, why aren't you in $1 million home? Because God's favor is supposed to be upon you, right? It's not like that. It's not like that. God's favor, in essence, we're really just talking about, his blessing, and not the blessing in the sense of receiving something of monetary value. I'm talking about blessing, like when a man asks for a father's blessing to marry his daughter, their permission to move forward, their permission to prosper, okay? I like to think of this dance that's kind of when I go to the grocery store with the kids, right? So when I go to the grocery store, I'm the one with authority, I'm in charge. Okay, we're gonna get fruits, we're gonna get some vegetables, we're gonna get some snacks, right? But I love having my kids involved, and it's this beautiful dance where I may get to choose that there are fruits and vegetables and snacks, but I love watching them pick out what they want for the family. So it's this beautiful dance of sovereignty and free will, but I love their involvement, and my blessing is upon it so long as it falls within those guidelines, right? As you're doing this, it can get really frustrating, like saying, well, God, do you want me to get this type of sheep or that type of sheep? And God may be saying, I don't know, what do you want? What do you want for me to shine my glory through? On this note, I also want to say that even if the odds may be stacked against you and it seems like there is absolutely no way that this can end up good, I want to remind you of Mark 16, verses 17 through 18, where it talks about all of these crazy things that Christians will be able to do because of Jesus, even pick up serpents and not be struck. So if it seems like God has called you to something that is totally far-fetched and not even possible by physical means, He is a good and sovereign God, and the outcome is up to Him. The next concept that I want to bring up is the idea that good and bad things happen to both the righteous and the unrighteous. When you're doing this kind of lifestyle, it's very easy to look at the field across from you and say, wow, God, they have so much land. Wow, their grass is so green. They have so many different animals on that land. I thought I was doing things your way. They're doing things the crazy way. Why are they being blessed, right? Or very easily to look at your own circumstances and say, God, I thought I was doing what you wanted. Why is this happening to me? Why are my animals getting sick, right? This concept, when we look in Matthew 5:45, when Jesus is speaking, and he talks about how the rain falls and the sun shines on the righteous and the unrighteous. We have good and bad things happening to both categories. But again, kind of played off the first concept, the outcome is up to God, right? Whether we all have scorching sun, God can use that same sun to wilt and dry someone's plants that He can use to help yours prosper. And vice versa. Sometimes these situations that we're in, He can either use to build faith, or He can also use to address our misbehavior. We've had lambs die. We have had lambs die, and it was because I had gone and sought them in my own strength. I was fearful that God would not provide, so I went and found the lousiest looking lambs that I could find with the least parasite resistance, just the first ones I could get my hands on. And they died. And I can sit there and I could get frustrated with God saying, God, we're doing these methods. Why aren't you pulling up your end? But He was trying to teach me something. He was trying to teach me, look, Sarah, wait for me. Wait for what I have for you. It's so much better. And I'm really excited for this new ram that we have. He's beautiful. But all that to say, He is sovereign. He is sovereign. That is really what these first two concepts are based around, is God's sovereignty and him being in control. And the idea of this balance that even though he doesn't need us involved, he wants us involved. And it's beautiful, beautiful when we can submit to him and he allows us freedom to operate within that. If this is something that you're interested in and would like to hear more about, we're planning on going through more concepts, and we would love to have you along for the ride. If you want to be alerted when we let out new stuff, just give us a subscribe. You can like this, share this with your friends. I hope you have a blessed day.